Hi, my name is Maceo Lewis. Welcome to my Sports Talk YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button at ML Sports Talk. There's space between the ML and sports and space between sports and talk, no underscore. Hit the subscribe button so you can see my latest posts and comments about the games that I watch. Today I'm going to talk about the game that I just watched, UConn versus South Carolina for the women's national championship. It wasn't much of a game. We all know the outcome. UConn won 82-59. Uh, it was a overall dominant performance by UConn. They proved why they were the number one team to be reckoned with in the women's tournament. And they showed that throughout most of the game against the other number one seed, South Carolina. So I just want to talk about some key points and some key plays that some of the players made that led to the outcome in this game. So it wasn't close at all. The only time it was really close was in the first quarter. There was a stat that came up during the game where there was like at least five lead changes in the first quarter. Uh, South Carolina scored first when Pow Pow hit her three, and UConn took the lead at about the 7 minute mark when it was 6-5, and they were pretty much going back and forth throughout most of the first quarter. Ultimately, UConn ended up ending the quarter at 19-14 with the lead. Uh, UConn was making a lot of steals. Each of the starters, except for one, had one steal. So they had four team steals. Bud was leading with rebounds. She led, or leading in scoring, I should say. She led with 7 points in the first quarter. Strong had like 6 boards, and the whole team had like 9 boards compared to South Carolina, which also had 9 boards as a team. So it was a game, but I mean, for the most part, UConn never really looked back after the first quarter. The key stats were, see, South Carolina, surprisingly, in the first half, they actually rebounded UConn. They out rebounded them 22-18 in the first half when the score was 36-26. The problem is, though, UConn was able to score off turnovers. By the first half, UConn was up 10-4 in terms of points off turnovers. And UConn had a little bit less turnovers at 5 compared to South Carolina, which had 7. UConn also had the edge with fast break points. They had 4 compared to 1, probably a 1 point off of a free throw for South Carolina. And then UConn had 14 points in the paint compared to 8 for South Carolina. Both teams shot poorly from 3 point range, so that was pretty much a wash. Blocks, UConn has by the half they had a slight edge at 3-2, and steals they were up 5-3. But the key stat though was the assists. So basically, what happened throughout the game, UConn was able to basically find the open player and either make the shot, drive to the basket, draw the foul, get to the foul lines, make the free throws. That's pretty much how they were able to build upon their lead throughout the game. So by the end of the game, UConn was able again to find the assist, find the open player. Assists were like 18-9 by the end of the game in favor of UConn. UConn was able to make 18 free throws compared to 13 for South Carolina. Points in the paint, UConn had 36 points in the paint compared to 26 for South Carolina. UConn on defense, basically they were able to get their hands in the faces of South Carolina, put pressure on them, which led to obviously blocks, some steals, but turnovers also out of bounds. Some of the stuff that doesn't show up on the stat sheet. So they were able to put ultra shots, of course. So they were able to put pressure on South Carolina and basically force them to make shots. South Carolina did get off some shots, but the problem was they weren't making them. And I credit that to UConn's defense. So the largest lead of the game was, 32 points by UConn. And I think the longest lead that South Carolina had was like three at some point in the first quarter. Um, Again, South Carolina did out rebound in the first half, but by the end of the game, UConn got the edge in rebounds, 40-36. The key players were, of course, the big three for UConn. Fudd and Strong each had 24 points apiece. Strong had 15 rebounds. Most of them were on the defensive end. She had, I believe, 14 defensive rebounds, three blocks, five assists. Paige had 17 points, six rebounds, three assists, one steal, one turnover. And she was, of course, 7 for 7 from the free throws. None of the South Carolina stars were in double figures. They showed a stat before the game that um, they had like the best, I guess, balanced scoring. A lot of the players were in double figures, but this game though they only had like two bench players that were in double figures. They had like 10 apiece, but now the stars scored over 10 points. Fudd was named the outstanding player of the Final Four. Uh, okay, bear in mind this is the only game I've seen all year for women's college basketball. So I didn't have any rooting interest coming into the game. I didn't even fill out a bracket. I just wanted to come in and see a good game and see how the team went at the end. UConn pretty much won me over, but just by their play, their hustle, how they were able to execute. They pretty showed that they were the dominant team and they deserved to win. But the player of the game, I thought, I mean, Fudd. It's hard to argue against Fudd. I mean, congratulations to her. But I thought Strong was actually the player of the game. Um, by that stat showed you with the rebounds, she was able to block shots, alter shots. She was able to get some key assists. I remember there was this one play in the third quarter. Let me get to that. Okay, so basically, it was like 3 minutes and 9 seconds in the game. Fudd had actually hit a three-pointer on the weak side. That three that she got came from an assist from Strong. Because I believe Paige had the ball. She passes to Strong. Strong was about to drive. She kicked out to the weak side to Fudd, and she hit a clutch three-pointer in the third quarter, making it 53-39. And then after that, Strong hit a three to make it 56-40 from Arnold. She gave her an assist. So pretty much UConn was able to score based off getting assists and just flat out hitting their shots, whereas South Carolina wasn't able to hit most of their shots. Paige, now let me talk about Paige Beckers. So Paige, she, as one of the commenters said, she is a good player. She's a great player. She was able to create shots, create space and create open shots for herself, and of course make the jump shots. She's a good passer. She made some key assists. She was able to draw defenders in, kick it out to an open player, and of course have her teammates score through the assist. I saw her drive to the basket, get and one. She made like some great hustle plays. Going back to that third quarter, when shortly after Strong hit that three after Fudd. I remember what's her name, Paige, getting hustling. She was like going after the ball, driving on the ground, getting to the foul line, and this is like at the point in the game where it's like they're almost up by like 20 points, and they're still fighting because they know that South Carolina they can still have a chance to come back, and they don't want to make it close, and so they weren't sort of resting on their laurels. There was just one point in the game where, clearly the game was out of hand in the fourth quarter. I just noticed there was a couple of times where Fudd took some threes and it wasn't really necessary. All they need to do was run the clock out and maybe drop to the basket, get some easy free throws, extend the lead. I remember there were a couple of times where she shot the ball and it was like, why are you doing that? Like, you're already up. Like, just, the clock is your friend, that it's the enemy of South Carolina. So just use that to your advantage. At the end of the day, obviously they won, but still, that was only one critique I had about UConn. One thing I noticed, aside from the game, I noticed that there were no commercials. There was hardly even any analysis in between breaks, compared to the men's game where between breaks there's commercials and there's analysis going on. So what they do is like they show like a live footage of the court, and this is the exact same thing with the WNBA too. I noticed that as well. And so to me, that just tells me that the sponsorship dollars aren't there for the women as compared to the men, which is a shame. But that's just something that I noticed about this game and just reminded me about what I saw with the WNBA season. I mean, it's kind of odd, like when you're sitting there in between timeouts and breaks and quarters and halves, and you're looking at live footage of the court from a distance and not seeing commercials or even someone talking about the game in between breaks. But anyway, that's just something that I noticed. So yeah, this is Paige's last year. So she to me, if just based off this game alone, she looks like she's going to be a good NBA player. She's expected to be the number one pick in the draft. So I'm looking forward to seeing her play. But yeah, so overall, great. Congratulations to UConn. They deserved it. Good effort by South Carolina, but they just couldn't hit shots in the end, and UConn was just able to make better plays, make score off the basket, score, relying on their teammates, taking advantage of South Carolina's weaknesses when they were trying to double team Page or go after the player with the ball, and that UConn just played a better game. So anyway, that's my thoughts on the championship game, but for the women. Later today, I'll probably do a quick pick of who I think is going to win between the men championship game, which comes on tomorrow. So anyway, until next time, this is ML Sports Talk. Hit the subscribe button so you can see more of my thoughts on future games that I observe.